Greetings, dear friends. Welcome. Do take a moment now, just to settle in, wherever you are, and let the outside world, and all its little hurries, fade away, just for a bit. My name is Min. Well, it doesn't really matter, does it? But for the sake of clarity, you can think of me as a fellow traveler on this path of understanding the mind. I've spent many years immersed in Zen practice, in Buddhist teachings, and exploring ways to find a bit of peace amidst the usual chaos of life, really. Now, I expect most of us, at some point, get that feeling, don't we? That, on the surface, life might seem alright, ticking over. But underneath, there's a kind of unease. A bit of inner turmoil, perhaps? Like carrying around a weight, a burden you can't quite put down. If any of this resonates with you, if you sometimes feel like there's something inside that needs a bit of tending to, a bit of care, then you've come to the right place, you really have. Because in this video, we're going to explore a rather powerful approach. An approach to what you might call self-healing. To illustrate this, I like to use a rather helpful analogy, taken from the wisdom of the East. Think of the skilled doctors of traditional Eastern medicine, experts in diagnosing physical ailments. Well, in a similar way, we can learn to become experts at understanding and, crucially, healing our inner ailments. Those mental illnesses, if you will, like stress, anxiety, anger, these are the real sources of suffering, aren't they? And that's precisely what we'll be diving into next. We'll be looking at these 4 examinations, as they call them, used by those Eastern physicians, and how we can use them to understand and to heal ourselves. So, shall we begin? Right then, let's delve into this rather fascinating analogy, shall we? Picture, if you will, the traditional doctors of the East. These weren't just, doctors, as we think of them now. They were highly skilled observers, deeply attuned to the human body, and, indeed, to the whole person, mind and body together. Now, these wise practitioners, they had a system, a very clever one. A way of diagnosing what was amiss. They relied on what they called the 4 examinations. In English, that's observation, listening, questioning, diagnosis. Bit of a mouthful, I know. But in essence, we're talking about observation, listening, questioning, and, a kind of diagnosis, if you like. First, there's observation, which is all about careful observation. Imagine a patient walking into the doctor's room. The doctor wouldn't just rush in with needles and potions, would they? No. They'd observe. How does the patient walk? How do they sit? How do they even hold a cup of tea? They'd look at their eyes, the very way they carry themselves. And from these careful observations, a skilled doctor could glean a great deal about what might be going on inside. Even get a sense of their energy, you see. Next, listening. After observing, the doctor would listen to the patient. Really listen. To their complaints, their descriptions of the pain, the discomfort. Doctor, my back's been playing up something awful, they might say. Every time I lie down, it pinches here and there. The doctor would listen attentively, letting the patient tell their story, in their own words and in their own time. Then comes questioning. This isn't just idle chit-chat, mind you. It's focused, careful questioning. The doctor would gently probe, ask specific questions to get a clearer picture. Where exactly does it hurt? When did it start? What makes it better or worse? These questions help to really understand the nuances of the patient's condition. And lastly, diagnosis itself. After all that observing, listening, and questioning, the doctor would then arrive at a diagnosis. A clear understanding of the ailment. They might check the pulse closely, feel for tenderness, really examine the patient thoroughly. And with this diagnosis, they could finally name the illness. And of course, once you've named it, you can start to treat it properly, can't you? Now, all of this talk of doctors and physical ailments might seem a bit distant from what we're really interested in, which is our minds, isn't it? But here's the clever bit. This very same framework, these 4 examinations, they're not just for understanding the body. Oh no, they're remarkably helpful when we turn them inwards. When we want to understand ourselves, our inner world. So, in the next part, we're going to take each of these examinations: observation, listening, questioning, diagnosis, and see exactly how we can use them to explore the landscape of our own minds. To understand our own mental illnesses, if you like. The things that trouble us. The things we want to heal. Intrigued? Excellent. Let's carry on, shall we? Alright then, let's get started with the first of our examinations and take observation. Now, as we said, in traditional medicine, this is about carefully looking at the patient. But when we're talking about our minds, well, you can't exactly see your mind in the same way, can you? Not like looking in a mirror, anyway. Instead, think of your mind as a landscape. A vast and ever-changing landscape. You might have towering mountains of ambition one day, or deep valleys of sadness another. Sunny meadows of joy, or stormy forests of anger. It's all there, isn't it? A whole world within. And observation, in this mental context, is about learning to become a detached observer of this landscape. Like sitting on a hillside, watching the weather roll in. You don't try to stop the clouds, do you? Or tell the rain to hold off. You simply watch. You notice the patterns. The way things change. Without getting caught up in it all. That's the real trick, you see. Observing without judging. So, how do we actually do this mental observation? Well, start simple. Just pay attention to what's going on inside, right now. Notice your emotions. Are you feeling peaceful? Restless? A bit grumpy, perhaps? Just name it, quietly, to yourself. Ah, there's a bit of restlessness. Or, seems like I'm feeling a bit anxious today. No need to analyze it, or tell yourself off for feeling it. Just notice. Like a weather report for your inner climate, you might say. The key thing with observation is this: pure, non-judgmental observation. Just like that doctor, carefully noting the patient's demeanor, we observe our inner landscape. The thoughts, the feelings, the energy, all of it, without criticism or condemnation. Just seeing what's there. It's the very first step, you see, in becoming your own inner healer. And from this simple act of observation, well, a great deal can unfold. But we'll get to that. For now, just practice watching, shall we? Right, so we've spent a bit of time looking, in our own way, of course, with observation. Now, we move on to listening, and that's all about listening. Now, listening to what, exactly, when we're talking about our minds? Well, that's what we're going to explore now. Think of it this way, our minds, they're not always shouting at us, are they? Sometimes, our worries, our anxieties, our little niggles of frustration, they're more like whispers. Little voices in the back of our heads, murmuring away. These are the whispers of our afflictions, the subtle ways our inner troubles make themselves known. Listening, then, is about learning to truly listen to these inner voices. To pay attention to the complaints of our afflictions, as we put it before. What are they actually saying? What stories are they spinning? What justifications are they offering up? You see, our afflictions, they're not usually shy. They have opinions, they have narratives, they have excuses, all sorts. We just need to tune in, to really hear them out. Now, here's a crucial thing to be aware of: afflictions are often masters of disguise. We used that word disguise in British, didn't we? They don't always present themselves directly, honestly, do they? They can be sneaky. They can twist things, they can mislead us. Just like a patient who might misunderstand their illness, our first take on what our afflictions are saying might be, well, a bit off the mark, to be honest. So, how do we listen effectively? Start by noticing your inner monologue, that constant stream of self-talk that runs through your head. When you're feeling a strong emotion, really listen to what your mind is telling you about it. If you're feeling angry, for example, your mind might be chattering away, "They were completely out of order. It's not fair. I'm right to be furious." That's the affliction talking, spinning its story. But here's where the listening becomes deeper. Don't just take that surface narrative at face value. Ask yourself, is this really the whole story? What's underneath that anger? Is there hurt? Is there fear? Is there something else entirely, disguised as anger? That deeper listening, that's where we start to get beyond the disguises, beyond the trahin of our afflictions. And that's where true understanding begins, isn't it? Next up, we'll explore questioning to help us dig even deeper. But for now, just listen closely, shall we? So, we've learned to observe with observation, and to truly listen with listening. Now, we arrive at questioning. And questioning, well, this is where we become a bit more active. A bit more like a detective, you might say. It's all about questioning. But not questioning others, mind you. Questioning our own inner world. Think of it as interrogating your own mind, in a way. But gentle, but persistent questioning. We're not just passively noticing and listening anymore. Now, we're actively probing. We're digging deeper. We're asking questions, trying to understand the why behind our afflictions. Why is this anger here? Why is this anxiety cropping up again? What's really going on beneath the surface? Questioning, you see, is about not being satisfied with those first, surface explanations our minds serve up. Remember those stories our afflictions tell us in listening? Well, questioning is where we start to challenge those stories. We don't just accept them at face value. We want to know, is that really true? Is that the whole truth? Or is there something more, something hidden, something we're not quite seeing yet? So, what sort of questions should we be asking? Well, it's about being gently skeptical of your own mind, in a way. Here are a few examples to get you started, just to give you a flavor, like, is this anger truly about justice, like my mind is telling me? Or, is it perhaps rooted in something a bit more tender? Wounded pride, maybe? Feeling overlooked? This anxiety that keeps bubbling up, is it really about genuine danger out there? Or, could it be more about a fear of the unknown? A fear of things not being quite predictable and safe? And this frustration, this constant feeling of not enough, is it truly about a lack of things in my life? Or, perhaps, is it more about unmet needs? A deeper longing for connection? For purpose? For something more meaningful? The key thing with questioning is to be really honest with yourself. And, dare I say, a little bit courageous too. Because sometimes, the answers we uncover aren't always flattering, are they? We might find that our righteous anger is mixed up with a hefty dose of ego. Or that our anxiety about the world is actually fear of looking inwards. It takes a bit of courage to face those less than perfect truths about ourselves, doesn't it? But it's in facing those truths, and asking those sometimes uncomfortable questions, that we really start to understand ourselves better. We start to see beyond the surface level, to the deeper roots of our afflictions. That clarity, that honest self-understanding, that's absolutely essential. And that's what sets us up perfectly for our final examination, diagnosis in action. So, are you ready to ask some deeper questions? Excellent. Let's move on to diagnosis, shall we? And now, we come to diagnosis. The final of our 4 examinations. We've observed with observation, we've listened with listening, we've questioned with questioning. And diagnosis? Well, diagnosis is where it all starts to come together. It's about diagnosis. But it's also vitally about action. About doing something positive with what we've learned. With diagnosis, we aim to arrive at a clear and precise understanding of what, exactly, is going on. We're not just vaguely aware of feeling a bit off, are we? We've gone deeper than that. We've been observing, listening, questioning, and now, we want to put a name on it. To really pinpoint what the mental illness is, as we've been calling it. Is it anger? Is it anxiety? Is it attachment? Is it envy, perhaps? Be specific. Name it clearly. Once we've named it, then comes the action part of diagnosis. Just like a doctor, having diagnosed a physical ailment, would then prescribe a treatment, we need to prescribe our own mental remedy, if you like. We need to find the right antidote, the right practice, the right wisdom, to counter this specific affliction. For anger, well, maybe the antidote is cultivating compassion, understanding, patience. For anxiety, perhaps it's developing mindfulness, grounding techniques, learning to be present in the moment. For attachment, maybe the remedy lies in practicing detachment, in understanding impermanence, in letting go a bit. And just like with a course of medicine for a physical illness, this mental treatment, well, it takes commitment. It takes consistent practice. It's not a quick fix, is it? It's about daily dosage, in a way. Regular moments of mindfulness. Regular acts of compassion. Regular reflection on wisdom teachings. Over time, with that consistent treatment, those afflictions, they start to lose their power. They start to weaken. So, diagnosis. Diagnosis in action. It's about bringing clarity to our inner struggles, and then, crucially, doing something positive to address them. It's about becoming proactive in our own mental well-being. And this, you see, is where the real healing truly begins. Now, we've just scratched the surface here with these 4 examinations, of course. But hopefully, it's given you a good starting point, a framework, a way to begin, becoming your own inner healer. And in our next section, well, we'll talk a little bit more about that path of healing itself. But for now, have a think about your own diagnosis, won't you? And perhaps, consider what antidote you might need to prescribe. Until next time, then. Now, after all this talk about understanding and diagnosing our mental illnesses, there's a really important point we need to get to grips with. When we start to become aware of these unpleasant feelings, these afflictions, there's a very natural urge, isn't there? to just get rid of them. To push them away, to suppress them, to pretend they're not there. But here's the thing, the real trick. True healing, true peace of mind, it doesn't actually come from suppressing these things. Oh no! It comes from something, almost the opposite, really. It comes from acceptance. From allowing them to be there, without fighting against them. Think of it like watching a film, you see? When an unpleasant scene comes on, you don't jump up and try to tear the screen down, do you? You just watch it unfold. You observe the drama, the tension, but you don't get caught up in it. That's how we need to approach our afflictions. Observe them, like watching a movie, without getting tangled up in the drama, without adding fuel to the fire, without judging ourselves for feeling them. And what happens when we do this? When we simply accept and observe? Well, strangely enough, that's when things start to shift. That's when those afflictions, those burdens, they begin to lose their power. That space we create, by not resisting, by not suppressing, that's the very space where true change, true healing, can actually take place. So, acceptance, not suppression. Remember that. It's a bit counterintuitive, perhaps, but it's a really crucial key on this path to inner peace. Let's keep that in mind as we move on, shall we? So, there we have it. We've journeyed through these 4 examinations of the Eastern doctors, haven't we? And we've seen how we can use them, not just for the body, but for our minds, for our inner selves. By learning to observe, to listen, to question, and to wisely diagnose our inner world, we really do unlock something rather remarkable, don't we? We unlock the potential for profound self-healing, right there within ourselves. Now, this isn't a quick fix, of course. It's a path, this is. A path of self-discovery, a path of transformation. Begin today, if you like, with that simple act of observation, that observation. Just notice what's going on inside. And be patient with yourselves, won't you? It takes time. But every mindful step, every moment of awareness, every little act of self-compassion, it all adds up. It truly does. And remember this, deep down, inner peace isn't some distant, impossible dream. It's not something you have to earn, or strive for endlessly. It's actually your birthright. It's already there, within you, waiting to be uncovered. True victory, as they say, is victory over oneself. And that's what we're aiming for here, isn't it? Inner peace, not as a destination way off in the distance, but as a path we walk, step by mindful step, cultivating compassion, wisdom, and, well, a bit of kindness towards ourselves, along the way. So, if you found this video helpful, do give it a like, won't you? It helps others to find it too. And if you'd like more insights into Buddhist wisdom and self-cultivation, well then, do subscribe to the channel. Perhaps share this video with someone who might benefit. And feel free to leave a comment below, tell us about your own experiences with self-observation, we'd love to hear from you. And, just a little wish for you before we go, may you be well, may you be peaceful, may you be happy. Take care, and until next time.